Welcome back, guys, to the F1 2018 career mode, and you join me for one of my favourite tracks on the calendar. It's the circuit Gilles Villeneuve and the Canadian Grand Prix, home of a few of my maiden and famous victories across my career modes. This is usually the point of a season where things start to swing in my favour. I mentioned it at the end of the last episode in Monaco, where this is sort of where we go into a few tracks where I really shine and that I'm better at, and you know, some could say that's down to the AI as well, but it's whatever you want to make of it, as it were. Anywho, we're coming into this weekend with no upgrades. We do have a massive power upgrade on the cards coming for France, our next race out, but that isn't here as of yet, unfortunately. Now, Daniel Ricciardo currently leads the way in the driver's standings with myself in second, Ocon in third, and that mirrors in the constructors. It goes Red Bull, Mercedes, and Force India. Now, Force India have been plagued with some reliability issues. If they don't have any of those, they will be a very strong contender for us this weekend, because, of course, they have a Mercedes engine bolted in the back, similar to us, and we will be, you know, it's all basically going to be slipstream fest, straight line battles, and a lot of toing and throwing under DRS. But hopefully the weekend, we're going to take a little look at the weather forecast momentarily. Hopefully it'll be in our favour, and no rain. I don't do very well in the rain, so it's going to be overcast, but all things considered, it's not really going to be a wet one, so we should be all right going forward. You know, we know what the European season, even though we've technically left it to come to Canada and then we're going to go back to it, is whatever. Don't worry about it. Anyway, looking at the performance chart, I've lied. We do have an upgrade. We have had an upgrade for this weekend, and you can see it looks like Force India have had one as well. So Red Bull and Force India, very level pegging. We're just behind. Renault have had a slight upgrade as well. Ferrari are very plateaued off. They're nearly nowhere. And even then, going into the back of the midfield, you see like Williams, Haas, they've come on a collision course. Toro Rosso have moved right up there with McLaren, and Sauber really dropping off there, unfortunately. So it's time for us to get to one of the most important parts of the weekend with qualifying.
Welcome again then, and we hope you're ready for another fantastic session as the teams prepare to unleash their cars for qualifying at the Canadian Grand Prix.
So this is the end of our first lap in absolute anger, and we've clouted the wall of champions. Thankfully, no major damage to the car, but it did mean that we were on to beat Daniel Ricciardo's time, and we didn't do it. Now, interestingly enough, I've actually, this weekend, I've committed to running the Hypersoft first thing, and this is our second lap, pretty much in its entirety. So we charge into turn one. Took a very measured approach to the first corner. Don't want to be diving in, because you really need to be able to rotate the car for the second corner and get the traction as much as possible. So we're P4 after our first run. We come through turns 5 and 6, and then we charge down towards the next chicane over the first sector split. It's the fastest of the session, and we're about 1.5 tenths up. But through that corner, that very understeery off-camber left-hander, I've put the car out. It sacrificed my delta, and then, of course, sacrificed time against the AI. This is my weakest sector of the whole weekend, and we've really got over the curbs through the other chicane. Really made up some time as we charge down towards the hairpin, and we're only slightly up on provisional pole at the moment. We've gone wide at the hairpin. That should give us, though, excellent grunt out of the corner, and now it's down the big old long back straight with DRS wide open. What kind of speeds are we going to get up to? Easily over 200 already. There's 210. Building up 215. What's it going to be when we hit the brakes? 219 miles an hour. Once again, all over the curbs at the chicane, and then just straight lining it as much as possible towards the line. It's a half-second improvement, and it's provisional P1 on a 107.2. I did make some mistakes on that lap, though. So, I went out on the Ultrasofts. Remember Season 2, we qualified our best lap on the Ultrasoft tyre, and that guaranteed an easy race on Sunday, but you can just see they're not quite giving me the grip and the performance that the hypers were, and you can see come the second sector I'm 7 tenths down on my delta, so we've abandoned that lap. And initially I thought about running it, but I was like, no, we need maximum performance out of the car, and Sergio Perez unfortunately pips my best time by like 1,000th of a second. So we went out again for a final run on a fresh set of tyres, and we were looking pretty good through the chicane. We made up some time, but we just tapped the wall on the exit and that, of course, sacrificed my acceleration, and we're over a quarter of a second down on my own delta, which, of course, Perez has only just beaten. So we're going to see if we can sacrifice and make up a bunch of time through the chicane just with ultimate aggression, and we made up a bit of time, but nowhere near enough. So we charge across the line, but it's not enough. And unfortunately, Perez is just going to pip us to pole position. So that was frustrating. I figured that could have been, I believe that would have been the first pole position of my career. But what we've done, just so everyone is aware, we've also invested in the ultimate chassis upgrade. That's going to be coming for the Austrian Grand Prix. And we're going to get ourselves a minor tyre wear upgrade. That'll be coming for France, as well as another power upgrade. Because I've realised the chassis department is really where the car needs a lot of work. So we're investing quite heavily into that at the moment. Try and get the car up there as the best car on the grid. And then hopefully just maintain it for the rest of the season. But it's crunch time. It's the Canadian Grand Prix.
We're back once again beside the St. Lawrence River here in Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. The event first moved to a variant of this track back in 1978. It was won by none other than Gilles Villeneuve, the first Canadian to ever win his home race, and in whose honour the circuit would be renamed. We'll be seeing top speeds of around 210 miles an hour here at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve, with around 2/3 of the lap taken at full throttle. High-speed chicanes spell potential danger, especially at the infamous Wall of Champions. And watch out for overtaking into the hairpin and the final chicane. With me today, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Let's talk about the captain. That was a solid result in their last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
It's always nice to come into a Grand Prix weekend on a high, but your expectations are based much more on your practice and qualifying runs. So it's the momentum from those sessions that they'll be hoping to carry into the race today.
We're almost ready to go then, and this is what the starting grid looks like for today's race. It's Sergio Perez on pole position today, and the captain completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Ocon, Daniel Ricciardo, and Bottas, Raikkonen, Hülkenberg, Vettel, and Brendan Hartley. Sainz, Alonso, Lance Stroll, and Leclerc, Magnussen, Grosjean, Marcus Ericsson, and Stoffel Van Dorn. Sirotkin and Pierre Gasly rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So Perez went one better and was the only man in the 1:06s in qualifying. So I really appreciate you shoving that in my face, Sergio. You know, you had me beat and then you beat me down a little bit more. However, that being said, I'm still confident that we can get this strategy to work. The one-stop hypers onto supers. Now, it's going to be harder than it was in Season 2 on the Force India, mainly because, of course, we haven't invested as much in the chassis department and the tyre wear of the car, and, of course, we're going hypers to supers, not ultras to supers, so, of course, we're going to try and drag out the hyper, and then, of course, the supers, apologies, are going to die off near the end of the stint. But here's the setup I've been running for this weekend. A little bit more understeer based. I've had less on the front wing, more on the rear wing. With the way I've been throwing the car around, I've really needed the rear to stick to the road more than the front to turn in, as it were. But other than that, it's usual stuff with the brakes. 90 on throttle, 60 on the off throttle. Really need the wheels to be rotating while I'm not on the throttle. Suspension geometry, all sort of the same. And yeah, like I say, I've really come to try and compensate, running less front wing on the front so I can have a more stable rear of the car, and then I just really set up the rest of the car for it to be able to turn in better. And of course, my brake pressure nice and high because I want to be as late on the brakes as physically possible. I love a good dive bomb into some of the sharper corners. But that being said, we're going to go on down to the grid and see what we can do from P2 at the Canadian Grand Prix as we now build with the lights at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. 5 are on for Canada. Lights are out, and we initially respond really well compared to Perez. But look at the speed he just gets through second and third gear. Perez comfortably leads into turn 1, and we have to slot in to second place. And it appears Verstappen and Ocon are having a bit of a tussle, and Ocon has moved up into third position. So now it is a battle as to the superior horsepower and grunt. I pretty much now just need to make sure I don't lose too much time through sector 2. That is my weakest sector, predominantly through traction out of this corner. Just look at Perez disappear into the distance down this straight. And then what I need to do is I need to make up time in the corners where I can. One corner I make up a lot of time is this final chicane, as I'm much more aggressive than the AI over the curbs. Just look at what we've made up on Perez, and we're in his slipstream into turn 1. But Perez leads the way, and we actually used up all of our ERS before the end of lap 1, and that's what Jeff was on the radio telling me about. So we need to save it somewhere else, and if we're going to get Perez anywhere, it's going to be into the final chicane or into turn 1. So I just need to shape him up, really. So I've turned the ERS down for this lap, still in high, and we're 3 tenths behind Perez as we come through the first sector. But like I've said, it's this corner here. I don't know what the AI do, but just they're so much stronger than me out of that corner. As we now move on to the hairpin on lap 2, Perez ahead of me. We're up to hot lap mode and rich though, but Perez on traction is just so strong. Of course, we don't have DRS to assist us as of yet, but up to overtake mode. What can we do against the Force India through the chicane and into turn 1? I think he's just too far ahead of me as we hit the brakes. We're once again just riding the curbs as much as possible. We're closer this time around, and we have still got the help of ERS. Can we make a move into turn 1? Just too far back, but it was the fastest lap of the Grand Prix on a 1:10.2, 2 tenths of a second faster than Sergio Perez, and this time around on lap 3 we should have the assistance of DRS. So once again, we just need to sit behind him, save the ERS, similar to what Leclerc did to Grosjean in Monaco. Figure out where he's weak and pounce there. That's exactly what I need to do. So DRS on this back straight is going to help us out versus Perez, because it allows us to stay closer even with traction not being that strong. Then we come through this chicane, not riding the curbs as much as I did in quali. We're shaping him up, still in the slipstream. Now we're up to hot lap. Now is where we can try and make the move, if ever. Just get a good run out of the hairpin. Perez very strong on traction, like I said, and just look at the gap that he pulls out before heading onto the back straight next to the river here. But DRS open, overtake mode. Now we're going to get the speed. Now we're going to get the speed versus Perez. We're so much closer than we were on the previous lap, and just look at the way we've carried ourselves. No, we've actually sacrificed speed out of the exit. Perez was very slow, had to not really take avoiding action, but just not able to carry that momentum that we had done over the previous couple of laps. And it just goes to show Perez's top end at the moment just has us measured. But here we go, lap 4. Now is where we're going to take another crack at it. We're closer than ever into the chicane, and now we're going to attack the curb straight line sooner than we did last time around. Look at the speed we carry through the chicane versus the Force India. We've mugged him out of the chicane before turn 1 has even happened, and normally I tend to set up my move through the chicane to make a dive down the inside of turn 1, but with Perez we just carried so much more speed through the chicane, he didn't even have a chance to react. But unfortunately, with how strong out of the hairpin he is, he's going to be trying to make a move on us. So we've broken the slipstream early, and we're defending into the chicane. We break early, take more of the inside curb, and like I've just said, versus the AI, we're so much more aggressive over the curbs, and that's just where we make up so much time through the final sector and down towards turn 1. And Perez sacrificed his line and his speed, and he's fallen 1.5 seconds behind me. And really, to be honest, that's all I needed. I just needed Perez out of my DRS, and I realised he wouldn't be able to challenge me, really. Bottas in for his first pit stop, end of lap 7. That definitely indicates a 2-stop strategy for Valtteri, and it would appear Ocon has got past Verstappen finally. We go on for one more lap as Perez pits, Ocon to carry on. One of the Red Bulls appeared to dive in as well, but end of lap 9, there goes Ocon. We're still lapping consistency-ish. We've dropped into the 11s now, but to be honest, that's not too bad. Now, who's going to filter out and be behind us? So it's Sainz now, who leads Perez on the Ultras. So Perez has committed himself to a 2-stop strategy. We're pitting the lap we committed to, lap 11. I've been nice and easy and calm on the way into the pits. It's very easy to speed in the pit lane here, but made sure that didn't happen. We're swapping over to the super soft tyres, a 2.2 by the Mercedes boys. Excellent pit stop, and the pit lane here isn't that long, and it does feed out right into turn 2, so you don't have to worry about turn 1. I think Sainz is going to get us. We're not racing him, we're racing Perez, and Perez appears to be very close to a Toro Rosso and his teammate. But you know who he's not very close to? He's not very close to me, as we feed out easily ahead of the Force India, right up behind Carlos Sainz. And realistically speaking, Sainz is going to be pitting within the next few laps. So all I need to do is just keep just up behind him a little bit. And we have the speed in the straight lines to be able to challenge him. Now, this point of the Grand Prix is a little concerning in the aspect of As you can see there, we've once again just carried so much speed through the chicane with DRS and, of course, our engine mix and our engine power. We've easily passed Sainz. But this stage of the Grand Prix will be interesting just due to the grounds of we're, of course, on the super soft tyre, while Perez and Ocon are on the Ultra. So they will have superior tyre performance at this stage of the Grand Prix. Ocon's actually on the hyper soft, so that's a very odd two-stop strategy that he's gone for then. Force India, I mean, they've done it in the past. They've shown that they have faith in their car and the way that it protects its tyres, but you would expect him to be hassling Perez at this stage of the Grand Prix, and to be honest, he really, really isn't. But now we're free of Sainz, we're going to be setting a personal best and the fastest lap of the race, a 1:10.0, and Bottas in again. Now, was that a stint on the hypersofts? And does that now mean he's going to do like 20 laps to the end on ultras? Because that doesn't seem right. But, you know, whatever Bottas wants to do. But you can just see we're easily maintaining the gap to the Force India boys. Ocon not really challenging Perez. Perez not really challenging me. Speaking of Perez, he's had an issue with his car, and Ocon does move up to second place. So Perez having some issues here. I wonder what his issues actually were, because there's a yellow flag all the way down the pit straight, and he's moving very slowly. So is it a retirement, or has he been really unfortunate and missed the pit lane for something? Because he's only just going into turn 1 now. Daniel Ricciardo moves up to P3, so he's clearly got ahead of Max Verstappen. Bottas, on of course his tyres, has now set the fastest lap of the race on a 1:09.7, and it's Perez has a left front puncher. And of course, because it happened going literally into the chicane, he can't then cut back across into the pits because that's dangerous. So Sergio Perez, his bad luck continues as he had the fastest car. Probably at the moment still has the fastest car, but due to issues that really aren't his fault, like I don't know if the tyre had issues beforehand, but you know, multiple engine failures and multiple mechanical issues has cost him at least a couple of wins. And you see Perez still crawling around as we've moved on to lap 19, so he is now well down the field. And that's unfortunately going to be nil point for Perez once again. And the saddest part is I think Ocon's going to have taken a lot of the life out of his hypersofts. So even though he had the tyre advantage, he wasn't able to close me down. And you see, as I move on to lap 21, do a personal best of the Grand Prix, unfortunately, still not matching Bottas's pace. The car ahead of me on track, Sergio Perez. He's close to going 2 laps down at this point, but he's of course going to fit ultra soft tyres. He's going to be faster than me at this point of the Grand Prix. And to be honest, speaking of this point of the Grand Prix, we come across the line, it's a 1:11.3. We're cruising. Everyone else has made their second pit stop, a pit stop that I don't have to make. So we're just doing what we need to do. Cars in standard, cars in medium. I'm not really pushing too hard. We've got 14.1 seconds back to Daniel Ricciardo. He would need to catch me at a second a lap. And to be honest, even if he did start doing that, as Ocon now sets the pace on a 1:09.6, so he's clearly enjoying his new tyres, as he's moved up to second place now, actually, as more cars pit. Bottas in again! That is a third pit stop for Bottas, as he used all of his hypersofts and gone on to ultras at the end. That's a ridiculous strategy. Just do the one stop! But, Ocon second, Ricciardo third. So now they have all finally made their final pit stops. Once again, just consistency in the 1:11s. We're actually coming up to lap. Kevin Magnussen here, who is of course on a one stop as well, because he's on super soft tyres. He's going to move out of the way for me, but you can just see the way that I'm harvesting fuel. And because they've now all made their final pit stops, as it's just said, there's so much time to the cars behind. I have 18.2 to Esteban Ocon, as someone is retiring up the road from me. I think it's one of the Saubers. It is indeed one of the Saubers. It is Charles Leclerc with an engine failure. Even if they did start closing me down by 1 to 2 seconds a lap, I could just turn the car up, put it in rich, put it in high. Look at the tyres. They're pristine. 30% wear. 36 on the rears. Realistically, this race for me wasn't actually too much of a challenge. After that we got past Perez, it was just a matter of making sure we stayed ahead. Or if we did fall behind, just maintaining the gap, because we knew we'd have to pit again. And once again, unfortunately, I've sort of dragged this out with some additional footage, but I didn't really want to make like a like an 8-minute video. We're going to win the Canadian Grand Prix, and we're going to do it comfortably. Sure, Perez is now only, Ocon is 16 seconds behind me, as Van Dorn is defending from me going into the chicane. That's really smart idea there, Van Dorn. No wonder you lost your seat. But yeah, I had turned the car up. We're down to standard now. 4 laps to go in this Grand Prix, and we can just once again just cruise it home. Really no words with how simple this was as we come on to our final lap of the Grand Prix. Just lapping in the low 1 minute 11s. Nice and comfortable. And I've started doing this now, if I can. I just sort of do like a last lap to reflect on the race and talk you through it. But there's not really much to say. You saw it. I extended the Hypersoft stint to lap 11. I pit. I put on supers. And I lapped consistently. Quickly to begin with, as you can see, with the 109. That's what the guys behind are doing on Ultras and Hypers. Or were doing. And just managed the race. This was, well, probably one of my most either like Sebastian Vettel or Lewis Hamilton-esque performances of just managing the gap. Did I need to push at all times? No, I pushed when it was absolutely necessary. And that is what mattered. That's what won me the race here. And it's going to be a dominant victory in Canada. Ricciardo only going to be third. We're going to get 10 points back on him at the Canadian Grand Prix. And we're going into a massive power upgrade at the French Grand Prix. So we're going to be bringing the fight to Red Bull. And hopefully Force India will join us in that fight and make it a big 3-way scrap over the European season. But we're going to come across the line to win the Canadian Grand Prix.
You worked hard for that one. Congratulations.
And here are our podium drivers today after that excellent race. They've excelled here, as they so often do, and it's a well-deserved victory. Mercedes, then, are on top today.
So there we have it. We have won the Canadian Grand Prix comfortably by 13.5 seconds to Esteban Ocon. Daniel Ricciardo bringing it home in third for Red Bull, but they just didn't have the pace there with Max Verstappen in P4. Valtteri Bottas on his 3-stop strategy. What were you thinking, Mercedes? You put him on the same strategy as me, and we would have had a 1-2 quite comfortably. Carlos Sainz did really, really well from P11 on the grid to get P6 and 8 World Championship points. Doing the 1-stop, only he went Ultras to Supers. Raikkonen 7th, and, you know, Ferrari are in amongst the Renaults. That speaks volumes as to how their Season 3 is going. I think Pierre Gasly, if we look just outside the top 10, from 20th to 11th on a 2-stop as well. If you factor that in, his teammate Brendan Hartley, who started 10th and finished 10th, did a stop less than him. And Gasly was only 12 seconds behind him. Considering the extra pit stop and the extra traffic he would have come through, that's a really, really good job from Pierre Gasly. But yeah, sort of Raikkonen, Hülkenberg, Vettel and Hartley rounding out the top 10. And of course Alonso not really having the power in his McLaren, not really able to repeat the podium that he got in Monaco. So unfortunate for Fernando, but what a weekend for us. What a weekend for the Mercedes team. And what a weekend for me, just crushing it once again. I feel like I'm bragging a little bit here, but it truly went all according to plan. Like, sure, my Saturday wasn't perfect, and would I have wanted to have started on the ultra soft tyre? Yes. However, in recent memory, if I'm not up and in amongst the leading pack, I get detached from them very quickly, and then even if we were running a 1-stop, could we have then caught them and maintained the pace like we did? Not sure. Where did Sergio Perez finish in the end? If we take a little look, did Perez actually finish the Grand Prix? He finished a solid P19. So unfortunate for Sergio. Didn't even get fastest lap of the race. So we couldn't have a titanic battle. But it was a fun first 5 laps of the race anyway. But as I've said already, we closed down Daniel Ricciardo by 10 points this afternoon. So we are now 8 points behind the Australian, and we are the second man to break 100 in the points barrier. Bottas jumps Hülkenberg with his result, and he's quickly closing in on Perez. Shocking, after 7 rounds, Perez's 50 points are 2 race wins. Other than that, he hasn't scored points, and yet he still remains 5th in the Drivers' Championship. That's insane to me. Moving over to the Constructors' side of things, Mercedes closed the gap ever so slightly to Red Bull Racing. We've closed it by 8 points as they go over 200 points. We are 42 points behind with Force India, another 20 points behind. So you know, if Valtteri and Mercedes stopped putting him on really insane strategies, maybe, just maybe, we'd be closer to them. But that's none of my concern. I'm going to soak up my victory back in the motorhome, and I'm sure Clara will be waiting to have a chat.
The fans really seem to enjoy that. You made it look easy. How are you feeling after that win?
Ecstatic. Happy. Like, yeah. It just goes to show that I'm the king of Canada.
You must be thrilled to be up on the podium.
Sort of. Well, same question. But, yeah, coming into Canada, I was expecting it.
Do you think that your close rivalry has helped you out this season?
I wouldn't call it close, but Kimi's a good driver, and I just don't think he's had the car really to compete with me.
You performed better than last weekend. What changed?
The track, the power upgrade, yeah. That's pretty much it.
Great. Well, that's everything.
Thank you for the lovely chat, Claire, and we now sit back in the motorhome. Bottas not looking too pleased. He's probably sitting there thinking, if I did one stop, would I have got second today? We'll never know, Valtteri, but I'm fairly confident it would have been a yes. So we now move on after the Canadian Grand Prix, where we've picked up a full 25 points onto the French Grand Prix. I don't think I have won it on this game as of yet. Like, I don't think I've won that race. However, that being said, I have performed very well. The first sector for me is a strong point. It's the final sector where I lose a lot of time, and it's never really fun where your weakest sector is followed by your strongest sector, because instead of making the moves in your strong sector, you find yourself more making up the lost time, as it were. But nonetheless, an excellent race for me and Mercedes. And like I said, we now move into tracks like France, Austria. Britain's a bit of a question mark because, you know, we've seen so far the AI are very, very quick around there. Germany, Hungary, again, that's one where I definitely know I'm not going to necessarily have the pace. Belgium, we tend to be quick. Monza, we tend to be quick. So we're looking at 5 of the next 7 circuits we could potentially win those races. Not saying we can't win in Britain and in Hungary, but it's going to be harder considering the fact that those circuits, while they have power bits, I lose a lot of time in the slower corners. But I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like and comment any feedback down below. Next time out, we, like I said, we are going to the French Grand Prix. Subscribe if you want to be kept up to date with the content that comes to the channel. And please remember to enable those notifications. We are quickly closing in on F1 2019, and I need to get the rest of this season out before that drops. So I am pushing myself and using every waking second of free time I have to, to get this content out for you guys. So I hope you are enjoying it, and I will see you all next time.